Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hi-Fi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. We are so excited that you are joining us for another week as we dive into this truth of I am made for community. So welcome to our community, part of the Hi-Fi community, part of my community here today. I have Kayla and Rachel joining us. We're so excited to have them today. And like every week, we love to start with a little bit of a get to know you question, a fun question. Maybe this is a question that you can have with some of your leaders as you prepare for the week. So this week, Kayla, Rachel, I want to ask you, we are talking about how I can learn from my friends. So who is someone that you want to be like or you have wanted to be like in the past? Kayla, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking. As a kid, I think one of the things that my parents modeled for me so well was Christian friendship. And I can remember people who were influential in my life beyond my parents when I was a kid were their friends. And so it was so cool for me to be able to grow up around the longevity of friendships that my parents had for like 10 and 20 and 30 years and to be influenced by their friendships. And so I remember my dad has this one particular friend who's a family friend. I've known him my whole life. And he is someone I would want to be like. He is someone I have learned from. And I have learned about how to follow Jesus from. I have learned about how to live life when life is really hard and difficult and circumstances are hard that you did not expect. And so when I think about someone I want to be like Scotty Carver is someone I want to be like. He is a man who just loves the Lord so deeply and is someone who just embodies like what it looks like to love and follow Jesus really well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Rachel, what about you?
I would say my parents for sure. But also, I've been lucky to have many women in my life who have been just really influential, godly people in my life. And one in particular that always comes to the top is a lady named Miss Sandy. I think I may have even talked about her here before. But she just played a huge role in my walk with the Lord when I was in college. And she showed me what it means to love Jesus, to love others, to share Jesus, and to serve. And so she's just been a powerful influence for me.
Both of those are such good answers. I love that those people that not only that you have now in your life, but have been in your life for a long time and how those people are the influences. Now I'm second guessing my answer now because I came here prepared to talk about Dude Perfect and how I'm drinking from a Dude Perfect cup today and how if I want to be like someone, I want to be like Dude Perfect. But your answers were so much better. So we're going to run with those. No, because it really is. It really is so important to have those people not only that you look up to, but are a part of your life, that aren't just someone who you can admire, who you can take good nuggets of truth. But the reason that you can take those nuggets of truth is because they are following Jesus, because of how they are living their lives, of how they are mentoring you or influencing you in your daily life. But it all stems with their relationship with Jesus. And that's something that I'm really excited about this week as we break it down for kids and preschoolers that I can learn from my friends. Now, these aren't all of your friends. We're not saying I can learn from all of my friends. There is a little bit of a caveat here of, hey, I can learn from my friends, ... who are following Jesus, because we know that there are worldly influences out there who don't want to lead kids the direction that Jesus is leading them. We know that there are friends out there that may not always be the best influences in their lives. So we want to teach kids and preschoolers that they can learn from their friends who are following Jesus and how important having that community around them each and every day is. So we're going to be looking at the story from Titus 1 and 2 of how Paul wrote a letter to a man named Titus. And Paul is such a great example here of encouraging and leading Titus in a godly way, of how it wasn't things that Paul was saying, hey, this is all the stuff that I've gleaned in my life and yada, yada, yada. But he is saying, hey, so that you can follow Jesus, here is what you can do. And that is so important to have in our lives. And I love both of your examples in the someone to look up to, because both of those were that for you, those godly, Christ-centered people that you could look to into your life. So, question for you, Kayla. As we look at this story of Paul and how he is writing to Titus, he's encouraging him, he's teaching him all about Jesus. Why is it important to have these friends, to have this community around ourselves? But also, why is it important for us to teach kids and preschoolers that they need this community as well?
Yeah, I think this is a really fun story to help us get to that main idea of I can learn from my friends. Especially, we know that this is Thanksgiving week. It's coming up this week. And it's just such a fun time to talk about community and what it looks like to love and care about people. And this Bible story is a real tangible way. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the tangibility of like Jesus washing his disciples' feet and serving. And this is another very tangible example of Paul coming alongside to encourage and cheer on Timothy when what he was walking through was really difficult and challenging. And Paul was someone who was a few steps ahead of him in age and in experience, who was pouring into him and encouraging him and leading him to continue to follow Jesus. Not to follow Paul, but to follow Jesus. And so I think this is why this is so important, is because we get to help teach kids and preschoolers about how they are made for community. Like, this is something God made them for. And one of the ways that we participate in this community is by learning from our friends and really living that out as we follow Jesus. And so as Titus learned from Paul, there are friends around us that we can learn from. There's people who may know some things about Jesus that we don't know. And it's important for us to pay attention and to learn from those people. And that this is part of that participation in community. There are people that we can teach about who Jesus is, and there are people that we can learn about who Jesus is. And so I think that that's a really important takeaway for this week.
I love that, Kayla. And I think something that's really cool is as we have this like flip mentality around hi-fi of the people that influence you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, of like friends, leaders, influencers, pastors, those friends are often the ones that you have on a day-to-day basis. So having those friends who are encouraging you, who are helping you follow Jesus, those are the people that are going to be the most influential in your life because you interact with them day to day. They're the ones that you're sending a text to in the morning. Those are the ones that you're hanging out with on the weekends. I don't always hang out with my pastor on the weekend, but I mean, sometimes I do. But those people, those friends are the ones that are going to have sometimes the biggest influence on your life. And having those strong friends, that community of friends that is around you, is so very important. And another reason that having that community of friends is so important is that sometimes following Jesus can feel a little lonely, especially in a ministry role. So in a ministry role, you can feel lonely. It can feel a little bit isolating, but how can you find a community who can come alongside you and encourage you? Rachel, would you mind answering that?
Sure. Ministry, you're right. It can feel lonely. And I think back to different times when I was in ministry and think about how, wow, I would think this is the loneliest I've ever felt, or I don't know that anyone can understand, how I'm feeling right now. And those things aren't true. People can understand. And a pitfall I'd fallen into is not making community around me, or not being honest that I needed encouragement, or not saying, hey, I'm really struggling right now. Can we get together and talk? Can you pray for me? And I think that's a big part of reaching out to create community, is to be honest and open about how you're feeling. And people who are in ministry need encouragement, the same as people who you are ministering to need encouragement. And I think building people around you from your church, from Bible studies, people who are also in ministry that you can build a community with who understand what you're doing, maybe in your church who are serving or in other churches that you can build a community of people who are serving together. I think about I was in a specific church for almost 10 years and was really needing some community around me. And a friend from a church down the street reached out and said, "Hey, we have a Bible study going on, and it's all people who are in ministry at various churches from our town. Do you want to join our Bible study?" And it was such a powerful and meaningful community for my family to get to be a part of it. So I would say be open to creative ways you can have community around you, and be open to share and let people in.
That is so true, Rachel. I know that even this last or a few weeks ago at Etch, it was so fun to have a lot of that ministry community that I've gotten to cultivate throughout the last few years just be around me, be able to celebrate with me, be able just to talk with me, and then be able to, even though we live in different states, still be able to talk and text and all of that sort of things when we're having trouble in ministry. So I 100% agree. Having that ministry connection, having those people that are also doing ministry, even in different capacities, even at different churches, is so very important. Alrighty, one more question for the group. Now, talking about community is such an important part, really, of Hi-Fi. I've talked about having those friends, leaders, influencers, pastors as part of these kids and as in our own lives, how important it is and how building relationships does lead to discipleship. So how do we set up our leaders well for that? Because we know that as we are finishing out this month, we want to set our leaders up to be those influencers in these kids' lives. So how can we set them up for success to help these kids and preschoolers know how they can walk with God?
That's a great question. Two big things come to mind. I think that we can, as ministry leaders, can really help our leaders be influencers through relationships and through resources. I think it's really important that as leaders that we are available relationally with our leaders, with those volunteer teams, that we are pouring into them, and we are those people that potentially those volunteers are learning from. And so making ourselves available to lead well and through relationship. And then also just setting up leaders well with resources and tangible ways of how they can influence preschoolers and kids, training opportunities, ways that they can relate to the preschooler or the kid in the room, ways that they can connect with their families. So I think just setting them up well in those two spaces is a great way to really help those leaders be influencers in the lives of kids and preschoolers.
For sure. I think those are great examples. Rachel, what about you? Have any fun examples of how we can set our leaders up as influencers?
I think Kayla gave great examples. I was thinking as she was talking about the scripture that we're reading this week in Titus, and it just reminded me as she was giving great examples about how Titus tells us to teach what is good, to love what is good, and to encourage with sound teaching, and how through great relationships and with resources that are sound, we can have those relationships and we can live out what we're teaching by being influencers.
I love that. Yeah, having our leaders as the influencers, as those people who get to share with kids and preschoolers on a week-to-week basis is so important. I think some little things as simple as introducing the parent to the teacher. So that way the parent understands like, hey, this is someone that you can trust as an influencer of your child. Being sure that the kids feel safe when they arrive. That's another great way of helping them feel safe before they are even hearing what that teacher is saying. There's so many little things that we can do to really set up our leaders for success, even giving them the material beforehand in a lot of different ways. So that way they feel prepared to go into the week. So that way they're not scrambling and worrying about a lesson, but instead they're able to really focus in on that relational aspect, I think is so very important. Well, Leaders, thank you so much for being a part of our Hi-Fi community. We really do love hearing from you. We love interacting with you on the Facebook group, and we just love sharing this resource with all of you who are building relationships, who are building community, all for the sake of making Jesus known. And that is super exciting to all of us. This is the last week of November. I hope you all are having a fantastic Thanksgiving week. But that means that next week we are starting a brand new truth because it is Christmas season. And this is a time that we definitely want to celebrate. We definitely want to be excited for. And we are going to do that with 2 new themes, with a new truth. So for preschool, we have the theme joy, joy, joy. Yes, not just 1 joy, not 2 joys, but 3 joys. Joy, joy, joy. God is always with me. And in kids, we are going to be learning about unwrapped, I am never alone, and how Jesus truly is the greatest gift given to us. These are things that we want kids and preschoolers to know, to take to heart, and to remember as they are growing up. And we can't wait for you all to interact with the content, to see the videos, to have some fun. And it's going to be an absolute fantastic week. So until next time, we will talk to you later. Bye.